Fam, I don't know why Alex Saab hat is. I really do not. But this is a real, listen, fam, Alex Saab, it's big. You know, a humanitarian, a guy whose only sin is he was trying to get food, medicine, aid to poor people in Venezuela, was captured by the U.S. This shows you how barbaric, how disgusting our government is, that they're going to grab a humanitarian like Alex Saab and jail him. But fam, we did get a little Christmas gift. Santa had a little something in the stocking, fam. Tell us what it is.
We needed
Go ahead.
something. I mean, it's been a crazy year. We needed something,
Let's
right?
go, Alex Saab.
So Alex Saab was released via a prisoner exchange with the United States, in which the U.S. would release about 12, or Venezuela would release 12 U.S. prisoners, and also among them some Venezuelan nationals that were against the Venezuelan current government and were part of the opposition. So they did this a little trade, and Alex Saab was released. Now, Alex Saab was from Colombian. His background is Lebanese. He's from Lebanon, and he was I believe, a nationalized Venezuelan. He was basically working as a diplomat for the Venezuelan government under Nicolas Maduro, and he was in prison for 3+ years. He was released in exchange for specifically 2 big American prisoners, and one of them was Fat Leonard. He was involved in the Pentagon scandal, and he was on his way back to Venezuela yesterday, and he landed in Venezuela, and he was kidnapped by the United States while he was attempting to get supplies, as Pasta said, for Venezuela, and they needed a specific ingredient for the oil. They couldn't use it because U.S. sanctions prohibited the ingredient, and so he was trying to get that from Iran, and he was trying to get medicine, food, and they basically stopped his plane in Cape Verde when he landed. He was forced to land there because the U.S. had put pressure on him, so he wouldn't land. They wouldn't allow him to land on 2 other African countries that were there, and so he was forced to land in Cape Verde, and that's when they took him. Now, they took him into custody under the Biden administration, but he was also detained previously during the Trump administration. This is something I point out to show the U.S. foreign policy towards Latin America is very similar. And towards most countries is very similar when it comes to whether it's a Democrat or Republican. And Alex Saab was charged with corruption and bribery, which obviously none of it was proved. And the United States defense said that the reason why they could kidnap a diplomat, which you're supposed to have diplomatic immunity, right? Is because he wasn't a real diplomat, because they didn't recognize President Nicolas Maduro as the president of Venezuela. So therefore, he could not be a diplomat because Maduro appointed him a diplomat. But if Maduro isn't the president of Venezuela because the U.S. simply doesn't recognize it, then therefore Alex Saab was also not a diplomat. And that's the thinking they use to try to say that they didn't violate international law, because it is a violation of international law to arrest a diplomat. So that's what was done. And here he arrived into Venezuelan territory, hugging his wife Camila Fabri and his children. Now, he was also, what a lot of people don't know, going through cancer while he was in prison, and he has endured torture. He has endured just all kinds of things. The prison was filthy, and he is finally, of course, released. And the Alex Saab movement, the Free Alex Saab movement, I want to give a shout out to them because they've been doing endless work. William from Venezuela has been doing a lot of work. A lot of people in the Free Alex Saab movement. I was there in Venezuela this year earlier, and I got to go to Caracas for this convention on lawfare, basically talking about Alex Saab's case, talking about Christina Kirchner's case, and also, of course, I brought up Julian Assange. Now, this is a win, fam, because I believe this really signifies a potential of other added area of defense for somebody like Julian Assange, who was a journalist. And as a journalist, he shouldn't be behind bars. And we're getting closer and closer to freeing Julian Assange. This whole thing was, of course, political manipulation. It was political ploy. It had nothing to do with actual corruption that he was accused of. Otherwise, you know, he really, they would have been able to prove it, but they didn't really have anything on him. And so we're seeing that public pressure works. We're also seeing, fam, something I might need to ask you. I feel that this shows that the United States is no longer at the top of the food chain. They have been trying to make concessions to Venezuela. They have been giving into Venezuela. They've been trying to work with Venezuela. Venezuela, in turn, all they care about is getting more food, more economic aid to their people that have been living under U.S. sanctions. They still need to get their gold back, but they have been working with the U.S. and the opposition to try to get the economy up, because living under these sanctions, it has been brutal. Things are very expensive in Venezuela compared to Latin American countries, and they do not make a lot of money. So it's been awful there. And so Venezuela seems to be understanding that the U.S. policy towards them hasn't changed, but it seems like the United States has been forced, because of Russia, because of what they've been doing to Russia, to go to Venezuela and give concessions. What do you think this means, fam, for the United States in this exchange?
You know, since we've been going to America, we've learned so much. I think what we learned so much was when we were in Honduras, right? We went from Nicaragua to Peru, then Peru to Honduras. But what we saw in Nicaragua was so different than what we witnessed in Honduras, right? And it's always this type of game between both governments or both countries where, you know, where they have to kind of like, you know, it's a fine dance. In other words, Honduras couldn't do what Nicaragua was doing, saying, Yankee, go home, get out of here. We don't want to deal with you anymore, because there is a military base, several military bases in Honduras, and they can do to Xiomara Castro what they did to her husband and Manuel Zelaya. However, the United States, the same thing. They can't go full-fledged. And a lot of people say, well, if the CIA is there, why can't they do this? Because they'll lose the country. And the people itself, like in Venezuela, in Cuba, and Nicaragua, would be like, F the United States, we're going to stand up for ourselves, so you can't go too full-fledged. When it comes to Venezuela, the United States hit them with crippling sanctions. Tried to kill Hugo Chavez at one point. Donald Trump tried to whack Maduro with a drone and it didn't work and stuff. Things aren't great in Venezuela, but you've been there, but things are getting better, right? Mm-hmm. So they're way off where they used to be. The Iranians have come in. They've had supermarkets and they've, you know, gotten oil in there. Yes, things are still expensive in Venezuela, but things are moving in the right direction. So technically, the sanctions didn't work 100% the way they were supposed to, and they've been failing, and now the United States has to make concessions because it's not working. So that's what I think about what's going on in Venezuela. You know, and also I want to point out when it comes to Julian Assange, right? A lot of people on both sides of the aisle, they're like, oh, you know, Donald Trump, you know, it was his State Department that is trying to get Julian Assange on the Espionage Act. The Democrats here are great, you know. At least Obama, expunged or, did not go through with Chelsea Manning and her convictions and whatnot. But, you know, we have Joe Biden now continuing the same policies from Donald Trump's State Department as far as prosecuting and torturing Julian Assange. And we had people like Hillary Clinton, you know, try to say, can't we just drone him? I'm saying this because I want to support your statement, what you said earlier before too as well. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to Democrat or Republican, when it comes to our foreign policy in Latin America, nothing changes. It's the same. They might have different rhetoric, but the theory and the theme is still the same. United States interest wants to get in there and control things. They want to make sure that they control the resources, that the corporations control them. It's about resource extractions. They want to make sure they're still under the same monetary system and their dollar is pegged to our dollar. So nothing really changes. There might be a little bit of language change, but the song still remains the same. Led Zeppelin, baby, one of the best rock groups of all time. And that's what I wanted to point out. And that's what's going on in Venezuela right now. They've outlasted the sanctions. They've survived them. You know, it's almost like what we witnessed when we were in Nicaragua, right? Remember our good friend Sergio, when he said they knew this day was coming with the sanctions, with the Resenera Act. They knew they were going to try to hit them hard because they're not playing ball with the United States State Department. But what did the Nicaraguans say? Hey, man, screw off. We can feed ourselves. We can do this. So they can outlast all these sanctions over there. And it really presents a quagmire for United States foreign policy when these things do happen. And that's why I love to see these Latin American countries just puff their chest up and said, you know what? We're a people of pride. We're nationalists. We love our country. We don't agree with everything our government might do, but it doesn't make a difference. We don't want you dictating America what we do in Latin America. And that's what I think we witnessed here in Venezuela. And you got to tip your hat off to Nicolas Maduro. And fam, we will be in Venezuela when they have that election, right? We're going to show people, just like we showed them with all these other elections, that, hey, man, they have more of a democratic representation than we do in the United States. Their elections are far more limpio, which is, if you don't know, fam, that's clean for Spanish. Way more clean. And
Spanish for clean, yeah.
Spanish for clean. Clean for Spanish. But that's what's going on, and that's what we're witnessing here in Venezuela. And, man, what a big victory. What a big victory where they say, hey, man, you want a prisoner exchange? We'll give you the prisoners. Give us Alex Saab. And it's so great to see him come off that plane. I wish I was in Venezuela to be there and give him a hug off that plane. I know I couldn't do that, and I'm a little small potato over here. But, man, I'd love to give that dude a hug right there, because when humanitarians like this guy get set free and are just so unjustly jailed, it's just a big victory right now. I mean, we got something for Christmas this year. It is truly amazing, fam.
Yeah, it's good for his family, and it's good for the entire free, political prisoners movement. Again, hopefully we'll see Julian Assange go to his wife and kids, like we're seeing Alex Saab go to his wife and kids, who have been really suffering a lot without him. And I got to meet his wife, and she's very nice, and she did a lot of work to get him free, and a lot of actions were taken, a lot of just doing just all of this activism that they were doing. And it's critical, because now this sets another precedent for other political prisoners that need to be released, that are still behind bars. And of course, it also shows, and Maduro did receive him in a video. I think I put it there. That should be the last one. And he basically said, welcome back, and he called him a patriot, and basically said, this is great that you're here. And after just being tortured, right, and after completely enduring horrible conditions
darle la bienvenida
in prison, I would like to give a welcome to this brave man, a patriot, he said.
A este hombre valiente, patriota, que resistió,
who resisted
1,280
days, 40 months,
las condiciones
the most adverse, most painful conditions of kidnapping,
de secuestro, cárceles inmundas,
filthy prisons, physical torture, psychological torture, threats and lies.
Mentiras.
And after 1,280 days of imprisonment, truth has won, justice has won, what needed to win has won. Welcome, Alex Saab Moran. From your painful days of persecution against you and your family. So there, and it's good to see this, but politically, it's also a win for Venezuela. We're seeing that they have more cards in their hands to actually do this with the United States, and it's the largest prison exchange we've seen from Venezuela with the United States in a long time. So we'll see what happens. I don't think Venezuela is just, going to trust the United States, or that they're somehow just ruling out working with the opposition. Remember, the U.S. has seized sanctions on Venezuela a little bit because Maduro had said that they would hold elections and allow the opposition to participate, but they have continued finding that the opposition is trying to overturn and overthrow the government. So as soon as they do that, they say they pull off some candidates. That's what happened in Nicaragua. And then the US says, well, you're being a dictator and you're not allowing these people to run. It's the same thing that I see in Nicaragua, that I see in Russia. US backed and funded candidates will never be allowed to run in these elections. Because if we were to back and fund a candidate to run anywhere else, or if somebody did that, let's say China came in, right? If China did that and backed and funded a candidate, like some of these Republicans seem to think that is happening, right? Then we wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
So it's that simple.
Yeah. Well, Republicans think a lot of things with some of their theories that we're going to get into next. But it's a great story. Alex Saab, free, ladies and gentlemen. Fam has been on the scene. She went to Venezuela without me. Okay, but
I had a rip us without you. Yep.
I went to Cuba first, so we'll just remember that. I've been to Cuba before you, and I've been to Cuba more times than you. Boom.